p.m. we are reconvening, and we are going to take up our preset Office of Tourism and Marketing update. Narissa.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Narissa Okie with your Tourism Office, and we're here to give a brief update on where we are and then talk about some of the CARES funding. So I thought it would be good to kind of look at where we were with 2020 as we headed into 2020. April 29th of 2020, we got some amazing news for us. Martin County had the highest year-over-year increase in tourism spending, up 17.9%. So looking at how tourism was shaping up for 2020, we were going into a really good situation in terms of how we're faring and getting individuals here. Well then, as we all know, we hit a bit of a pandemic and a bump here, and this is a visualization of inbound traffic into Martin County. So you can kind of see how it looks. Those spikes that you're seeing tend to be on the weekend. The lower parts are throughout the week where visitation and inbound traffic is much lower. So you can see where it really kind of falls out down in April, heading up through May, and where we're kind of at. And we track this and a lot of different factors to see what we're doing and how we can make sure that we're doing the best job that we can for Martin County. So when the pandemic hit, we went and got a custom forecast from Smith Travel. And they're the ones who track the occupancy, the average daily rate, and the kind of the health of the tourism industry from a hotel perspective. And we were able to get a custom forecast based on the indicators that they were seeing. And we anticipated ending the fiscal year down about 26.9%. So we were looking at some pretty drastic decreases, in looking at hotel occupancy and hotel revenue. So this is our forecast and what we were kind of looking at and worked through with our Tourism Development Council to see how we were going to adapt. We ended up being much better, in a much better position. So throughout the year, we ended up and we were only down 11%. So to kind of talk about what we did and the strategies that we've undertaken with this, I'm going to bring up Ian Centrone, and he is our Public Relations and Community Liaison, to kind of talk about the efforts and the strategy we undertook, and then I'll come back at the end to talk about what we've done with the CARES and the CARES programming. So I'm going to turn this over to Ian.
Thank you for the introduction, Narissa. My name is Ian Centrone. I'm the Tourism Public Relations and Community Liaison for the Office of Tourism and Marketing. Thank you for having me this afternoon. So as Narissa mentioned, today I'm just going to go through some of the strategies that we put in place both before and during the pandemic. As Narissa mentioned, we hit the ground running in 2020. So in January, we actually went up to New York, my home state, and we met. Sorry?
Mine too.
Yeah, there you go. And we met with over 25 top-tier journalists and editors from some of these publications over a two-day event, just to introduce them to the Martin County destination. And then we immediately followed that with the New York Times Travel Show, which is a consumer-facing event where we represented the overarching Treasure Coast destination. So we really started 2020 off strong. We were able to secure positive coverage in some great top-tier outlets, including House Beautiful, Parade Magazine, MSN, and then as COVID-19 began dominating headlines in March, we knew that we really had to completely shift our overarching marketing and communication strategy. It's strange as a tourism office to all of a sudden stop the come here, come visit now messaging, but obviously it's what needed to be done. So we started thinking about what are some other ways that we could leverage our social media platforms, our PR efforts, our marketing campaigns to really tell the story of Martin County, just to keep the destination top of mind during all of this uncertainty, because as you all know as well as anybody, at the beginning of the pandemic there were a lot of questions, a lot more questions than answers, and we weren't really sure what was going to happen. But we decided to really focus on the dream now and visit later type messaging. And we used our platforms to really share uplifting content during a scary and uncertain time. We highlighted our natural attractions here in Martin County with beautiful photos and videos. And we also poured a lot of energy into supporting our local businesses here in Martin County. One of the first things that we did was we rebranded our Protect Our Paradise website. We knew that we had to create new content that was sensitive to this ever-changing situation, but we did want to keep all of our followers and our audiences informed, inspired, engaged, entertained. So with the Protect Our Paradise website, we completely revamped it. We echoed a lot of the official county communications surrounding COVID-19. We loaded it with a bunch of resources from the Florida Department of Health, the CDC, personal economic relief, et cetera. And we also started creating our new content that was really tailored to this new norm. So you can see up here just a few examples that lived on this website, including our virtual Zoom backgrounds that were Discover Martin branded. We created these educational coloring pages that had fun facts about our local marine life for all of the students who are now virtual learning from home. We also created a dining at a distance portal, which was this overarching database that had all of the new services that our restaurants here in Martin County were offering, like takeout, drive-up, delivery options, to keep them front and center as well as a bunch of new videos. From the blog perspective, we were reshifting the way that we were telling stories about Martin County, but still keeping the destination top of mind. Some examples: how to recreate your Martin County vacation at home, 10 easy ways to spread kindness, not germs. So obviously relevant and timely, but still tied to our mission. And so from March to May, we kind of refer to this as stage one. And from the PR perspective, journalists were not writing about, here's where you need to travel now and why. So how do you do that? How do you keep Martin County newsworthy and relevant? And we thought, why don't we start pitching what we're doing as a destination marketing organization, because that's part of the story, as well as the people in our community who found really creative solutions to offer virtual experiences to share Martin County, through their organizations as well. So at the start of the pandemic, from March to May, we garnered over 31 million impressions worth an estimated media value of over $230,000. Atlanta is a huge market for us, so you can see here in North Georgia Living magazine, Martin County was featured, including the MCTV archive of videos, our live surf cams, so people could kind of take that virtual vacation, even the library system that was doing social media live stream storytelling for kids. So Martin County was named as one of the destinations where virtual tourism is thriving. Some travel magazines picked up those blog posts verbatim with our permission, as well as a lot of blogs, and then even local and regional news outlets picked up our efforts as well. We also use this opportunity to remind writers about all the things that make Martin County such a great place to visit. So you can see a lot of these examples highlight some of our outdoor experiences, our hiking trails in Hobe Sound, outdoor wedding venue at the Mansion at Tuckahoe at Indian Riverside Park. You can see running routes through Halpatioke. There's obviously an emphasis on road trips at this point in time, so some of our more scenic drives as well, and Blowing Rocks being named one of the best beaches in the world. And we really focused on positioning Narissa as an expert and a thought leader in the travel space. So we worked together to get some quotes and some sound bites, some predictions from her, and then pitch those to writers as well, which you can see here in this Men's Journal example. And then fam trips are also a really effective tool that we use in the Office of Tourism. A fam trip is just a familiarization visit where we invite writers or social media personalities down to experience the destination firsthand and then write about the things that they did. So we had the chance, before a lot of the stay-at-home orders went into place, we had the chance to bring 2 writers down, one from Orlando Magazine, which is another key market for us, and they published this print and digital feature about downtown Stewart, as well as this piece in Jack's Facts magazine, just highlighting some of the hidden gems of the Treasure Coast. And around that time, toward the end of May, we started noticing there was fatigue in the virtual angle, so we again went back and kind of called the 6-month period from June until now a stage 2. And this is when we just really doubled down on our key messaging, highlighting our 22 miles of uncrowded beaches, over 100,000 acres of parks and conservation lands, outdoor activities, aquatic adventures. And this is during a time where travel writers aren't sure what to write, editors are being laid off, and we just really wanted to find a way to pivot from actively encouraging people to visit here, but reminding people that we exist and all the reasons why you should add us to your bucket list for when you are ready to travel. And it worked out really well for us. We garnered over 80 print and digital placements this year, generating over 5 billion impressions worth an estimated media value of over $40 million. And you can see these are just some of the publications that Martin County was featured in, but a really nice, diverse range. We're obviously not going to go through all of those today, but here are just a few examples. So you can see the different creative ways that we were pitching Martin County. So for example, a lot of international trips were canceled this year. So instead, we pitched a Reader's Digest about Hobe Sound, the unique Anastasia limestone cliffs, and how that could kind of feel like a vacation abroad, reminiscent of some other far-flung destinations. The Caribbean Shores Waterfront Resort recently underwent a huge renovation with these beautiful standalone waterfront cottages. So we pitched that to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and was included in a huge feature, how to get away and maintain your COVID bubble with a road trip. So there were just examples like this again and again. Thrillist naming Stewart's Beaches one of the most beautiful places to visit in the state. Again, pitching some of the more unique and unexpected angles. Nobody really thinks of these banyan tree tunnels when they think of South Florida, but again, with the emphasis on road trips, we found a lot of people interested in the Martin County, the Martin Grade Scenic Highway and things of that nature. And then of course, just our region's really interesting historic legacy and how the Treasure Coast sort of earned its moniker. This was just recently featured in MSN and Reader's Digest as well. So obviously right now, in-person media missions cannot take place, but last month we participated in a virtual media mission with Visit Florida, where we spoke with over 20 different journalists from some of these publications, just to really pick their brain and find out what stories are you interested in hearing right now, what are the things that your readers are trying to learn more about, and also just to kind of clue them in on the different updates that we have in the pipeline here in Martin County for 2021. In October, we hosted a 5-journalist road trip. It was a FAM where they came down in their separate RVs. We partnered with St. Augustine and the Keys as well to do 3 stops along the Atlantic coast. And again, just kind of emphasizing the importance of these FAM trips. We've already seen some incredible coverage come out of it. MSN, Photos, Family Vacation Critic. And then what's great about these two, when we work with Visit Florida, we also get the assets, so the photos and the videos, as well as generating great coverage for our partners, such as the Florida Oceanographic Center or Phipps Park with the Martin County Parks and Recreation Department where they were staying. And every year, the American Planning Association hosts an award. It's the Great Places Award. One destination in every state wins the title. So we nominated downtown Stewart, and we were thrilled to learn very recently that Stewart was named the 2020 Great Places Award winner for the state of Florida. So that was a nice morale boost and also generated some nice coverage both for the local and regional publications as well. In terms of our recovery marketing efforts, we have been staying very busy and experimenting, exploring different routes. I won't get into all the details, but we started doing this retargeting strategy, which basically we have these embedded codes across every website and section and blog post of Discover Martin, and we can kind of tell based on the content that each website visitor is looking at what kind of stuff they want to see more of. So we capture them into our email database and then serve them really tailored newsletters and additional content, special offers, again, just to stay top of mind. Some native content that we experimented with. These native articles lived on our websites, then have paid campaigns to kind of keep people in our communication funnel. We created these interactive itineraries that live on our website to give people different ideas of what to do when they are planning a vacation. And obviously just keeping the times and the challenges of COVID-19 in mind, we have different versions of this. This one is the budget-friendly example. And we launched a postcard campaign just in order to keep people kind of connected during a time when everybody feels so isolated. So we designed these beautiful postcards that feature real imagery of Martin County. They have cheeky copy, and people are able to learn more about the destination, then customize their own messages to send to their loved ones through email completely for free. And then in turn, we get their email addresses to import them into our email newsletter database. And we saw a lot of success with these as well. A lot of travel agents and some of the local partners use these as well, just to kind of stay in touch with their clients. And a really interesting research finding that we kept seeing pop up again and again during all of these travel sentiment surveys was that men were reporting to be much more likely to travel or start planning travel than their female counterparts. And within that segment, it was the outdoor enthusiasts and the fishermen specifically that were really ready to start planning their trips. So we decided to create a campaign targeted just for them to highlight the amazing fishing that we have here in Martin County. The website had really nice imagery, video, information about the fish species that call Martin County waters home, as well as information on the local fishing charters for people who did want to book a trip. We even partnered with Ed Killer, a local fishing expert and reporter for the TC Palm, who wrote a series of fishing-centric blog posts just for our site. And we invested a lot of energy into sponsored content where we can kind of have a little more direction over what sorts of highlights they want to include in the editorial, just to reach different target markets that we have. So Scary Mommy is a massively popular website targeting moms, known for their kind of sassy, tongue-in-cheek voice. So we partnered with them, highlight all of our key messaging. Flamingo Magazine, again, kind of an insider, Floridian's travel guide, keeping all the socially distanced activities in mind. We also worked with Fatherly, which is a lifestyle magazine dedicated to dads. And from a Martin Together standpoint, this was a campaign that we created to really echo the safety messaging of the county. And this was basically, we created this website and then we also wrote the Martin Together pledge to go alongside with it. And we invited all of the local tourism-facing businesses to sign up if they were agreeing to follow all the CDC best practices. And basically what that would do is instill consumer confidence, as well as get them a special listing in our directory, which was then supported with a paid ad through print and digital buys, like these examples up on the screen. We tapped into some of the larger campaigns that were happening with Visit Florida. This was the first time they ever did an in-state rebound campaign. So we were able to customize these banner ads and highlight different communities like Hobe Sound, Stewart, Jensen Beach, as well as this domestic campaign. This is national with the U.S. Travel Association. It's their Let's Go There campaign. And the whole messaging around this is when it's time to go, we'll be ready. So we created a bunch of custom content highlighting our partners here in the county. And right now with the holidays, that messaging is starting to shift to inspire people to give the gift of travel. New video assets. We won't go into any of the videos this afternoon, but they are all on our website. They live on our Discover Martin YouTube page. But we worked with local videographers to create a new series of really beautifully shot videos. This one is When You're Ready, again, just echoing when the time comes that you are ready to travel. Here are some of the things that you can do when you're in town. We also highlighted some of the actual experiences like paddling over to St. Lucie Inlet Preserve State Park, or hiking, or cycling along the 80 miles of trails and bike paths that we have here. And the last tactic that I'll cover today is marketing partnerships with some of the publications that we work with. So we worked with the New York Daily News to give a dream vacation destination where travel is valid until December 2021. We pulled some of the great highlights of Martin County: sunset sail on Schooner Lily, yoga on the beach, stand-up paddleboarding. And this campaign resulted in 6 full-page, full-color ads with an estimated media value of almost $400,000, reaching over 8 million people in the Northeast, which is an important target market for us. And then Narissa is going to come up and kind of walk us through some of the CARES programs.
I like sitting here a lot better than over there.
Thank you. So that's kind of
Yeah,
the
but I-
strategy we
I
undertook
like this.
as we went through the different phases and what we're looking at. We're signed up for a lot of research and looking at what people are doing and best practices and making sure that we're following those. Tourism, just as a FYI, is not expected to rebound for the next 3 years. It is the hardest industry that is hit, and it will be the slowest to recover. Right now, there's a $491 billion loss in tourism spending in the United States. To put that in perspective for Martin County, the tourism impact or tourism spending in Martin County is $558.7 million in Martin County alone, and 65 cents of every dollar spent by visitors stay local. So this is why we want to make sure that we're continuing to encourage travel when people are ready, and doing all we can to support the businesses. About 7,000 individuals are supported by the tourism industry here. So we were very, very fortunate to get some CARES funding, and we just kind of wanted to go through what we did with that. So we did an extension of Martin Together. Ian mentioned it. Businesses take the pledge. And once you take the pledge, you're on this martintogether.com website. And then we're retargeting and remarketing because it helps instill consumer confidence, and people who are looking for safe destinations and safe retailers are looking for this information. So that's what the Martin Together campaign is and what that does. We amplified that. You may have seen it. It's in, which we don't normally do local, but it was in this December issue of Stewart Magazine and Indian River Magazine last month. And we made sure to tie in downtown Stewart with those things there. We did a sweepstake where we're actually purchasing items and giving those away. So we're using the funds to acquire the items from businesses and then giving those away in a sweepstake type campaign. So that's been successful for us. And again, we get the information and are able to contact those individuals through our database. We did some new creative. This one features arts and culture, and it says, you can't really read it on the bottom here, but it talks about what we're doing, and our artists are ready to safely welcome you back. Meetings took a major hit here. So this talks about having a meeting Martin County as a meetings destination, and it ties in the two properties that really host meetings, which would be the Hutchinson Shores Resort and Spa and the Marriott Hutchinson Island. So we went to the partners and said, what can we do? Where do you need assistance? And how can we get the Martin County name out there or support you? And normally we do not do much with a lot of meetings, but they said small meetings are really make up that weekday travel, and if you could help us with that. So this is in the Florida Association of Executives magazine is where that print ad is there. We launched Missed Milestones campaign where we're utilizing the funding, and if people, this is now through December, if you book 2 nights, you get 1 night free, and we're offsetting the cost of that for the participating properties, and that's the campaign that's out there right now. We thought it would be a little different than rather putting all of our money into advertising. We're able to give something directly back, and there's ties to and meets all of the CARES guidelines. Apologies on this one. This was some of the creative for it. It's on our website if you'd like to see.
Really looking forward to that.
This is a beautiful slide here, I know.
Was.
Sorry about that. We also wanted to see how can we assist businesses with the CARES funding. So we're able to offset 10 months of membership and pay for the cost of the seal of commitment for our hotels and our restaurants. So we signed up for this program, which is in conjunction with the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association. So businesses are required to cover the 2 months because with CARES funding, you can only do the 10 months of the impact. And then the cost for the seal of commitment is a certificate where FRLA comes in and they train you on best practices, and you are going above and beyond to get this seal of safety, again, helping with consumer confidence and rebounding. So we have this program that's up there, and we're offsetting this. We have a digital marketing training, which is 4 sessions that businesses were able to sign up for. How to inspire confidence in your listings, how to make sure that you have any COVID messaging on your listing, which you can do. If you're a female-owned business, are you making sure that you're putting the badges associated with that? How are you responding to people if they have concerns? Social media fundamentals, online reputation and managing that, and making sure that you are looking at different platforms. This really went into not just your Google listing and claiming it and making sure that it's precise and has the accurate information, but Yelp and TripAdvisor and then social media. So this was available for tourism businesses. If they took the 4 sessions, it opens up a digital toolkit which has advertising money in there. For any other businesses that are not tourism centric, they've been able to follow along with this. They just don't get the advertising credit at the end of it. These will all be posted on our website once they're done so that any business can see them, because there's some really useful information in here. We have one session that's coming up this week, which is how to shift during a pandemic. How do you shifting consumer expectations, and how do you address those as we're going through the pandemic? So it's a do this, not that, to align your business during a pandemic. And this is open to, this was sent out and it's open to anyone. It's a free session that's associated. So this is taking place next week. And once it's done, again, it'll also be videotaped and on our website as well. Visit Florida for our partners and attractions. We've offered a 10-month membership, so we're taking advantage of that as well. We can cover 10 months, they cover 2 months, and then they get those benefits, and there's a $60,000 value in this. That's not costing us that, don't worry, but there's a lot of value in terms of getting an enhanced listing and getting your information in front of people who are looking and coming to Florida. And then we work with Stuart with a downtown reboot, and you'll see some of these ads. So we kind of went through and really highlighted that award Ian nominated them for, so people can know that this is taking place. And that is kind of a wrap-up on the efforts that we've undertaken, and thank you so much for your support and confidence in us. And I think we've tried our best to bring programs to businesses rather than just kind of utilizing everything in one basket. We've tried to spread everything across to make sure that we're making a difference and
How much
impacting
did you
everyone.
spend in CARES funding?
We were allocated $1 million.
Great. That was a fantastic presentation. Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So thank you for indulging us. I get the privilege of representing you all on the TDC, and I get to see these presentations every meeting we have. And what I really had hoped for, and I think both Ian and Narissa did exactly what they do at our regular meeting, you almost sit there speechless looking at everything. And what they just ran through, at our next meeting, it'll be a whole new level of content. It's like, that's not a year's worth of stuff. That's like ongoing. This is what that team produces for us as a county and as our TDC. And I hope that you certainly got a flavor for how much energy and effort they put into it for a ridiculously small little staff that we have. I think they do an amazing job. And I don't know that everybody gets to see what we do at a TDC meeting. So I thought it was important that we could get them to come during the commission meeting so you all could see what I get to see every TDC meeting. And it is, I think it's absolutely over the top. You know, Narissa was asked how much were we allocated out of the CARES money. $1 million is a lot of money, but it's also a lot of money to spend, believe it or not. It's not easy in the short amount of time that we dedicated those funds to that effort. It's like probably 6 weeks, Narissa, maybe? You got all that done?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when you think of all the buys, all the communication, everything that just went through, and as quickly as Narissa loves to go through it, and thank God she's got Ian that slows down a little bit, all that had to occur in a very compressed period of time and actually get all the content done, actually put it in place and get it producing for our industry. And again, I don't know how many other TDCs pulled off what we pulled off, but for the staff and the size, again, I think they did a remarkable job. And the last piece of that, years ago, this board landed and decided we were going with the artistic media that is the sort of the backdrop to everything Narissa showed you and produced, or that is produced for us. I hope you feel and I hope you think that it fits us as a community. I think every graphic that's produced, everything that has sort of this style to it that we've adopted, I think absolutely speaks to Martin County and makes it look what we are and what we are best at. So hopefully you all like it, and we'll continue to do more.
Yep. Narissa? I just have a question. So what was the dollar amount of earned media that you said that we had gotten captured from some of your pitching?
I think I'll pull it up. It's over 30 million, I'm pretty seeing. We're also very lucky. Ian's been with us for 20 years in COVID time, but he's actually has his 1-year anniversary tomorrow. And prior to this, he is a travel journalist. So Ian does know how to pitch and write, and that has helped with a lot of the coverage that we're able to get. And it was phenomenal. Here is that slide.
So CARES dollar aside, because we didn't use, those were, in-house resources, and we were able to capture over $40 million of return just by, our staff's time and energy. That to me is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
Well, and to Commissioner, to that point, we also want to recognize our partners that help Narissa and Ian. So when these travel writers approach us and say, I'd like to come and visit Martin County, Narissa and Ian reach out to the restaurants, the hotels, other activities, paddleboarding.
Commissioners.
Yeah.
Commissioner Jenkins did it, just trying to, these places provide them
Yes.
as a comp. And so we're able to save those funds, but then they get shown in the magazine, so they get that too. So we're fortunate.
That's just a phenomenal return on investment, so wonderful job. And then one more question. On the safety pledge, how is that going? And can anyone participate, or any business, or does it have to be restaurant-centric or hotel-centric?
What we have on the Martin Together, it's martintogether.com. We do like a vanity URL because it helps with tracking, but it's a page on Discover Martin. And we found when we presented the initial concept, we had a lot of businesses that are not tourism-centric. So if you're a tourism-centric business, that you have a retail establishment, restaurant, hotel, we've had some spas that have signed up, you have more of a presence. So you'll have like an image of your location, but we also have a banner on that says non-tourism businesses committed to your safety. And so we have a variety of different businesses that have taken the pledge, and when you click on that, it's a link directly from our website to their business, but it does highlight them. So if you're a tourism business, because it's the tourism website, there's a more visual presence. And again, that pledge goes through the things you want to do, and then we were creative with it. I feel that Ian did a great job where we asked questions that can be repurposed later on. So what are your favorite things to do in Martin County? What do you want to do? What's your favorite gift? And then that information is reused later on in some of the blog content, and we can credit the businesses that way, regardless if it's a tourism business or a non-tourism business. We have that XYZ business recommends you go to the House of Refuge for sunset, or you pick up this souvenir or that souvenir. We can retie that in, and content's ever evolving and changing on the website.
So if a business wants to take the safety pledge, they would go to Discover
martintogether.com.
martintogether.com. Great, wonderful. Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, I just want to jump on the love train here. Narissa is one of my favorite presenters. She's articulate, she's well-informed, she's enthusiastic, she's very creative. Her visuals are always wonderful. So when she turned over the presentation to Ian, I thought, big mistake, Narissa, big mistake. But my goodness, you're wonderful. You're both so great. And I'm also so impressed by the way that you pivoted during COVID to a gentler approach, to a kinder approach, to a more appropriate approach. You immediately both recognized that those kinds of messages weren't going to work for us anymore. So find something quickly that did, and you're a wonderful team. What a wonderful asset for Martin County.
And we also
Thank
need
you.
to thank our third team member who is not here, but who
Yeah.
manages both Narissa and Ian and all of the bills and everything that's taking place, with is Sally Bynan. So
Yep.
she's been with us for as long as I have. She started right after me. So it's a 3-member team, and I think we've all meshed really well, and we're doing our best for the county. So thank you
Great
so much
job.
for allowing us to present.
Stacey,
Great.
Stacey,
Thank you.
one more thing.
Oh, yes, Commissioner.
Just another quick thing. Years ago, we had a consultant come in and share with us kind of the level at which you're either in the game of marketing your destination, or you're just kind of straddling the edges of it. And, we've been kind of straddling the edges of the marketing dollars we've given Narissa for all these years. What I think we will find, and there's a whole nother presentation that maybe we can have Narissa back again and do on the analytics side of what we have tapped into in terms of how they analytically look at what we're doing and where people are going, what they're doing, how they're spending. But it really does go to the point with this $1 million infusion that we just did. We will be able to come back and show you and prove to you all that you get over the $1 million mark and you're in the game. You can absolutely influence the destination, influence the folks coming to the destination to a point to where you can really start measuring it and understanding exactly what's working, what's not working. Is it this, or is it a combination of all these things? We never had that before. In prior years, prior to Narissa, that stuff never existed to the level at which we have it today. they are running this thing as if we are a large urban county that has millions and millions of dollars worth of resources back behind it. And this analytical stuff that she's tapped into, and also the Google analytical training that we're doing. Our goal, I think, eventually is, and some of what was encapsulated in her presentation was really to market the destination and to get folks to come to our destination and support our industry. But it's also, in my mind, geared and designed to help our industry achieve better results when we have people to get here, so that they are giving the very best level of service or a deliverable of a product they can give them. And some of those tools, NERISA is starting to build into this process. So the analytical side of it, the Google side of it, helping our small businesses really understand, if you do these things, this will happen. And you'll put yourself in a much stronger, better position, so that when the visitor does come, their experience is even better than the last time it came, and they'll want to come back and do it again and spend more and do it again. So again, I can't say enough for what they're doing, but I think the real impressive thing, I think, so far is what she was able to achieve with that influx of cash, and how we can look at that number next year and understand that's where we need to get to full time. So thank you all. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much.
Thank you. Okay, we are now going to move to departmental number 1, Office of Management and Budget items which require board approval. Mrs. Manning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Of course, I cannot be such an exciting person. So,
He's a judge of that.
Jennifer Manning, OMB Director. The first item on the agenda is the Fire Rescue Department is requesting to apply to the Robert Wood Jordan Foundation Community Grant. They currently have a community paramedic mobile program for individuals who are underinsured or don't have health insurance, and they normally call go to emergency rooms and taxi emergency services. So if they were successful in getting this grant, it would provide $334,000 over a 3-year period, which would entail 1 FTE, which is a fire paramedic, to help with because they have a lot of clients, or they have a lot of referrals, so this would help to mitigate that, and after 3 years, it will be our responsibility. The second item is permission to apply for the 2022 E911 grant in the amount of $28,589. This is just to upgrade their E911 system. Third item is permission to do a supplemental agreement for the Dixie Highway project. It's a LAP agreement with the City of Stuart. We're requesting a decrease in the grant funding because of the bid. They got the lowest bid, which was under what they expected. The fourth item is permission to accept the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission Artificial Construction Reef Grant. It is in the amount of $60,000. It requires a $25,000 match, which is programmed in Artificial Reef CIP. And those are my items.
Okay.
Thank you.
Beautifully
Looking for a
presented.
motion.
Absolutely. It was stellar.
It was a master class. You're going to wait for a vote?
Move adoption?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by
Just gonna
Commissioner
leave
Smith,
before the end.
seconded by Commissioner Jenkins. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Now
Okay.
you go.
And we are departmental number 3, authorization to join PFAS class action lawsuit and transfer of funds, presented by Ruth Holmes.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Ruth Holmes with the County Attorney's Office. I don't have quite as many pictures as Narissa did, but I do have a few. We're pretty proud of them. You may have heard of a phrase called forever chemicals. These are also referred to by the acronyms PFAS, PFOA, PFOS, or various iterations of those letters. PFAS, the umbrella chemical, stands for per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. There are over 5,000 of these types of chemicals out there in the environment and used in products. Not used in products so much anymore, they are no longer manufactured, but they still exist. PFAS chemicals are in a variety of products that we're all familiar with, such as nonstick cookware, firefighting foam, carpets, things like that. The reason that we have those in, or the manufacturers have put those in products, they're very, very effective at what they do. The molecular structure of these chemicals is so tight that water can't penetrate beneath the surface, nor can air. That's why in some firefighting foams, the FAA has required that fire rescue departments across the country use a certain type of PFAS firefighting foam, or firefighting foam that has a certain type of PFAS in it. Because when you have these major fires that are petroleum-based or grease-based, something like that, they put that stuff on there and it just suffocates it immediately. And that's why it's so effective. So you also see those, the same things, like I said, in nonstick cookware. You think about your eggs sliding off the pan, or in other things where you just don't want things to stick. In carpet, you have anti-stain chemicals that are manufactured on the carpet, or fire retardant fabrics. It's all part of these groups of chemicals, and they've been very, very effective. So why is Martin County interested in any of this stuff? Because these are contaminants of emerging concern, and the reason that they're contaminants of emerging concern is that when they do leach into the environment, whether it is by firefighting foam, whether it is, after 40 years of throwing shag carpet into an unlined landfill, there's an array of sources of this, industrial solvents that are seeping into the groundwater. It could come from anywhere. And so the federal government, the EPA, has not set any enforceable standards on this yet. And I emphasize the word yet. We understand the incoming administration is probably going to do that. Some of the states have set enforceable standards. There are advisory limits at the federal level. The state of Florida has adopted provisional standards, meaning that technically they are not enforceable in the state of Florida. Those standards are not enforceable. However, a lot of local governments, including Martin County so far, we have been cooperating with the department. The department had notified Martin County early in 2019, saying that one of the DEP's contractors found the existence of PFAS in unincorporated portions of Martin County. And they said, pursuant to our authority as the regulator in the state, we want you to investigate the vertical and horizontal extent of where this PFAS is. That means looking at how deep is it in the ground and in groundwater, and how far out spatially does it exist. Because of that notification to Martin County, we hired consultants to come in and actually dig wells, take samples, analyze those wells, help us with report writing to the department to let them know where we are on this. And so because of that, Martin County has incurred response costs. And response costs, just a term of art for anything that a party, a person, an organization, a government spends in order to comply with a government directive, and especially in a situation like this. And right now we have a little over $164,000 in paid out response costs for this effort trying to comply with DEP. The DEP, it's expanding its direction to Martin County, meaning we have to investigate deeper and further out in some of these areas. They're also doing their own investigation in Martin County. You should know that there's no indication that DEP is targeting Martin County for any particular reason. We are one of a multitude of local governments in the state of Florida, from the Panhandle down to Miami-Dade County, where DEP has sent these notification letters out to, and everybody's doing the same thing, trying to walk that thin line between being a responsible local government and making sure that we're not doing anything or haven't done anything that compromises public health or the environment. But on the other hand, we're having to make sure that we're also not being tasked or charged with cleaning up everything in unincorporated Martin County. So we are walking a thin line between cooperation and protecting taxpayer resources. But we do have these response costs out there. And right now, there's no state grant funding or federal government funding to help defray these costs for us or for anybody else. You also might want to know that, Martin County's response costs are probably a drop in the bucket compared to some of the other local governments, the Department of Defense facilities around the Panhandle, Miami-Dade County Airport, the list goes on. But we do have them. And so right now, and what this agenda item is about, is to request authorization to take the steps necessary to engage and join a federal class action lawsuit against the manufacturers to help recoup some of our costs. Now, I will say that, I've used the word or the phrase class action here loosely because everybody kind of has a conceptual understanding of what that is. What we're talking about nationally is actually something called a multi-district litigation. So if you think about a class action, you're usually talking about a bunch of plaintiffs, there's one cause of action, there's maybe one or more defendants, but everything is the same. Your damages are usually the same. Maybe it's a part on your car that you need replacement for, or you get a certain amount of damages. But it's usually all bundled into one lawsuit. Multi-district litigation, on the other hand, is similar, except that you have numerous or a group of other individually filed complaints. So in other words, Martin County's response costs are not the same as Miami-Dade County or the state of New York or the city of Austin or anything like that. So that's why everything is individually filed. I just wanted to make that distinction. And we're asking today for authorization to join that in order to hopefully recoup our response costs. It's not about punitive damages. It's not about anything like that. Last I counted this morning, there were 10 other local governments in the state of Florida that have joined the multi-district litigation. And then nationwide, there's upwards of 100. There could be several hundred at this point. Everything from state governments, local governments, that's counties and cities, airports, water districts. We are not asking, so on behalf of our utilities PFAS-free. We've been using some of their very good experts over there because they have experience and expertise and those things related to soil and groundwater movement. So we've been using them, but it's not about our utility department. And the risks of joining a multi-district litigation or a class action are very minimal. So your risks are that your financial exposure are the hard costs. For example, your filing fees to file a complaint in federal court. If we can join a firm that has several local government plaintiffs, hopefully in the state of Florida, then we split all of those costs. We split costs for things like experts. We split costs for things like court reporters, all of that stuff. And so we think that the risks of joining are minimal. The reward is pretty significant if you think about what our response costs are that right now are just coming directly from taxpayer resources. So that's it in a nutshell. That's the PFAS multi-district litigation request. We are also asking for a transfer of money to fund the hard costs and continuation of the consulting costs for the DEP-directed investigations.
Okay, great. Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So, Ruth, just curious, for probably a better part of 2 years at the National Association of Counties, other states, I think we're way ahead of us in terms of where they are in the process, because they've been talking about it for at least a couple of years, that it was a evolving, brewing kind of a problem. Have you engaged or have you talked to them at all, NACO, National Association of Counties?
No, I haven't talked to NACO, but we are involved in talking to a lot of the Florida-based stormwater associations, and then one of the law firms that we're talking to is very involved with the Florida League of Cities and the Florida Association of County Attorneys.
Okay.
So we have been involved more on a Florida basis.
It might be worth a call just to touch base with them and see where they are with it. Because like I said, at least for 2 years, our environmental committee that I sit on, that has consumed a significant amount of discussion from a lot of different states all over the country. But, Florida, at least at the table during those conversations, was somewhat not really in the conversation yet. So it might be helpful for whatever it's worth.
Commissioner Hearn?
Yeah, if there are no minimum standards for PFAS contamination in Florida, what kind of enforcement can DEP take? In other words, how can you violate a standard that doesn't exist?
So they have set provisional cleanup target levels, and there's they can set those levels, and they've done so with the assistance of the University of Florida, but technically they're not enforceable. Now, what DEP will say is that, oh, yes, they are, because DEP also has regulations that say that they can require cleanup on for any type of contaminant, so that the soil and groundwater is free from that contaminant. And so they have been using kind of the sword of the free from language to make sure that all the local governments comply. We do anticipate, like I said, with the incoming Biden administration, we think, based on things that are out there in the media every day, that they are probably going to set standards, and the state of Florida is probably going to either adopt those, or they will go through rulemaking in 2021 to adopt their own standards, which will probably mirror the provisional groundwater and soil cleanup standards.
So right now, the DEP has provisional standards of, I'm making this up, 5 parts per billion, and they send a letter to Martin County saying, you have to examine such and such a geographical area and take out anything that's above 5 parts per billion.
So we haven't gotten to, you have to take it out yet. We're still in the assessment step. We want to know where it exists, and how far spatially, how far down vertically, and how far spatially, horizontally it exists. That's where we're at right now. But they have intimated that they do want to discuss remediation steps in the future. We're just not there yet, but we do anticipate that it's coming.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Commissioner Campy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Holmes, thank you. I appreciate that. You said that there were about 10 other municipalities in Florida that were already doing something like this. Are there any other counties at that level?
Let me just read you the list of who it is.
Okay.
Who's in it. Hillsborough County Aviation Authority, the City of Melbourne, City of Zephyr Hills, Hillsborough Community College. I think that's probably a fire training facility, although I'm not sure. Tampa Bay Water, City of Tampa, Miami-Dade County, City of Stuart, Sanford Airport Authority, and the City of Lauderhill. So I would say that Miami-Dade County is probably the only other county, and I think, from what I read in the paper, and some of Miami-Dade County's information that's available online, is it really stems from the airport down there.
Okay.
So, Martin County does have a bit of different factual situations, but we're still responding to DEP.
Understood. One other question. Is there any other mechanism that would enable us to be reimbursed other than this one? You said that really the catalyst for this would be, it's a way for us to seek reimbursement. Is there any other way that we could seek reimbursement?
Not that we're aware of.
Thank you.
And we need to take board action. We need a motion to
Yes,
join.
staff recommendation, we have,
is to authorize us to take the action necessary to join the class action, and then also to authorize the funds for our assessments and consultants. God, I can't say
Move
it.
staff's
Okay,
recommendation.
what's the board's pleasure?
Second.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Jenkins. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
thank you, Donna.
All right, now we have a workshop today on the agenda. It is David Farmer from Metro Forecasting Models will present the Martin County Interactive Growth Model, presented by Clyde Doolin.
I'll, if you will, I'll tee off. I am Clyde Doolin with the Martin County Growth Management Department, and I just wanted to make a little introductory presentation before Mr. Farmer gets started. In February of 2018, the board reviewed a residential capacity analysis that indicated a need to expand capacity, or at least begin planning for a need for more capacity. In February of 2019, staff brought forward a capacity expansion analysis. The BCC asked staff to research what we feel is the most appropriate methodology for and incorporated best management practices. So what we have gone out and studied are different methods and different consultants and different ways in which this is done. And we are going to present to you the interactive growth model. It is not just a residential capacity analysis. It is much, much more. So what are the differences? Well, a residential capacity analysis does not consider existing residential development. It doesn't consider commercial or industrial development that's existing already in Martin County. It does not include any of the municipalities. The IGM does. It does not include any of the land outside the primary and secondary urban services districts, shown here in white, which is our agricultural area. And the residential capacity analysis is nowhere near what the interactive growth model can include and does include. So please allow me to turn it over to David Farmer with Metro Forecasting Models. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Farmer.
Thank you, Commissioners, and good afternoon. It is a pleasure to be here today. I have to admit, this is the first time I've worn a suit since January. It still fits, so I think I'm doing good. All right, so let me get, do you click on this? There we go. Okay, so Metro Forecasting Models is a company, a planning firm which works exclusively with local governments to model your land use policies and plan for the long term and understand what that might mean. I am David Farmer. I'm the CEO of Metro Forecasting Models. I'm a licensed professional engineer.
Can you just slightly closer to the microphone,
Oh,
please?
yep. I'm a licensed professional engineer and a certified planner, and I also have land development experience. So briefly today, there's only a few slides left, but we're going to go over the introduction to the Martin County Interactive Growth Model, show you the long-range population and housing growth forecasts, discuss some commercial and industrial portions of the forecast, as well as school and fire, applications for planning, and some other applications you may not have thought of, and then summarize and take any questions along the way. Whoops. So we began by doing a lot of research, And we developed this GIS tool so that we could see all your various land use layers, your future land use map, the National Wetland Inventory Database, your proposed projects that are on a GIS layer, where your water and sewer lines are, so we could help estimate the build-out potential, and many other factors. And we can turn these layers off and on so we can get an in-depth understanding of what is Martin County today, so we can better understand how it's going to grow in the future. The model accounts for real land use characteristics. So depending on what the zoning is, or what the wetlands are, or how utilities are available, all these things impact the development characteristics in the future. So as I was just saying, we begin by doing extensive research. We review over 30 years of census block data, so we can understand how areas might be changing into demographics, whether that's higher household sizes, lower household sizes, increased vacancy rates, reduced vacancy rates. And many times we find that it's a very stable, flat trend, and sometimes we find things are increasing or decreasing, and we take that into account. We use your property appraiser data as the basis for our residential units, as well as the non-residential, that would be commercial, industrial, and certain government facilities. But we found from experience, because we do this all over the place, that the data, we can't just take it as gospel. We've got to take a look at it and see if there's any inconsistencies in it. And sometimes there's not inconsistencies, it just isn't the right kind of data we're looking at. For example, maybe the property appraiser might tell us there's an apartment complex. Well, that's good, but we need to know how many units are in that apartment complex. Sometimes the property appraisers tell us, sometimes they don't. Even when they tell us, we go and get another layer called the E911 database to give us an estimate of how many doorknobs are actually there. In the end, we try to really replicate as best as we can today how many housing units do you have, because then we can understand what your current population is and what the prospects for growth might be. We then also develop a detailed database of your vacant land. And as you might imagine, we can't just take the property appraiser's data and use it as face value, because sometimes they might put a code on a vacant piece of property saying it's vacant residential, when the zoning might be actually for industrial. So we clean those things and get those things straightened out before we put the data into the model and we begin the modeling process. So we found through experience and research that growth tends to follow a logistic type curve. Now, not every place grows like this. For instance, if you look at Asheville, North Carolina, it doesn't grow like this because they've gone through several gold booms and gold busts. But outside of these outside forces, we find that most places tend to evolve like this. And it's important to understand this logistic growth pattern, because if you look at an area that hasn't grown for a long time, you might underestimate the future growth. Or if you're looking at an area that's growing very rapidly, maybe your 2003, 2004, 2005, your growth rate was sky high. But it's understanding what the real growth potential is, and our model connects the baseline, the existing, to what the future potential is. And that future potential is based on your policies, right? Your future land use map, your growth management plan, et cetera. And lo and behold, what we've done here is we've just graphed the census population counts over time from about 2030 on. And so the blue dots are census, and the red dots are our forecast for the next 20 years or so. And as you can see, indeed, it's magic. It follows that logistic type curve. So we think that our model is an excellent fit for Martin County and what your prospects are for growth. Now, those red dots are not set in stone. They're based on policy. If there was a change, to make things up, let's say Martin County put in a moratorium where not a single building permit would be issued. Well, that would definitely impact the growth potential. If you made some density changes, that would also change the growth potential. The IGM is perfect for modeling and testing what these policy changes might react and look like before you even put them into place. So you can sort of see in your crystal ball what the future might look like if you go this way or go that way. This can be a very scary slide, and it's not intended to be. What I'm trying to show you here is you have about just under 80,000 housing units today, based on the best information we had as of February of this year. We also estimate that your population at the time was about 161,193. And based on your policies and the information we have available, when we were building the model over the spring, we think your potential is somewhere around 105,000 housing units at build-out. Now, will that actually be the real number? Probably not, because the chances are you're going to be changing policies between now and 2080. But if they didn't change, this is what it would look like. And we think your build-out population based on those policies is about 223,000. Two things to take from this is that we think you're going to be adding about 4,600 housing units between now and 2030, and your population is going to increase by just under 10,000 people. Now, when I was presenting to the LPA, someone mentioned there, well, hey, Dave, we grew by 15,000 even during the recession from 2010 to 2020. But I would point out that you had a ton of vacant units. And those units were probably backfilled quickly, right? Because they're existing. I don't have to build a vacant unit. It's already there and people can move into it. And I think that's what absorbed and why your population was able to grow. Based on all the data that I have, all the experience that I have, I really think this is what your next 10 years looks like outside, again, of something different happening or something changing. This does take into consideration, and I'm going to get this wrong, the old Pineland Prairie, Newfoundland, Newfield?
Newfield.
Newfield. This takes into consideration Newfield. In fact, if I back up a slide, the model's does in 5-year increments, but I'll tell you behind the scenes, it looks like around 2023, 2024 is when the housing will start taking off. And this is probably too detailed, but I'll say this here. We think there'll be somewhere just north of 200 units in that project by 2025. There might be, if their environmental permitting is done, those things might accelerate and change those things, but that's how we see it evolving. Oops. And it's no surprise that when we have a change in growth, we have more people, we have more housing units, commercial and industrial tend to follow those things, right? They tend to follow the rooftops. So today, when I say today, I mean about February, you had just over 16 million square feet of goods and services building area. And we think that by 2030, you're going to have just north of 17 million, which means a growth of about 1.2 million. This morning, while I was meeting with your staff, I actually dug into it a little bit more because I wanted to understand, well, what part of that was happening in Stewart and what part was happening outside of Stewart? And so we think about 400,000 square feet of that by 2030 is going to happen in Stewart, and the other 700,000 or so is going to happen in the unincorporated part of the county. Similarly, you have about 8 million square feet of industrial space, and we think you're probably going to add about 600,000, 650,000. Now again, this is based on no outside influences or some big company moving to the area. Like my office is in Bonita Springs, and just north of us is Hertz World Headquarters. And when they moved in, I think our population jumped up by about 3,000 because that was an outside sort of shock, if you will, right? You can't plan on a Hertz moving to your area. It just happens or it doesn't. The policy brings them there or it doesn't. So you have opportunity here. I'm not saying you need to change your policies, but certainly there's room to increase your amount of industrial space if you want to help balance your tax base and reduce the tax burden on your residents. So the Martin Interactive Growth Model is an excellent planning tool for looking at your long-range needs and interdepartmental planning. All too often, the governments that we work with, we find that maybe the utility department is using one forecast or one methodology, law enforcement is using another one. And I know you might point and say, well, they're probably just using Bieber. Well, they might be using Bieber, or they might be using some extrapolation thereof, because there are ranges, right? Bieber has a low, medium, high. This gives you not only a consistent population forecast, but it also provides for you to boil it down to a spatialness, right? I didn't say at the beginning, as we took Martin County, we broke you up into a little over 300 zones, traffic analysis zones. So the data is pretty granular. And if you want to draw a unique shape, we can tell you what the population today and what the future, what we think is going to happen, and when it's going to happen of that unique shape. Utility planners use something called a sewer shed, and those are very unique shapes. They don't follow any census boundaries or anything like that, and so we can analyze those and say, here's what you have today, here's what you're going to have tomorrow, in 2020, 30, 2040, and so forth. So it's great for budgeting, so you don't over-plan, too, because it's all too easy, and we find that developers are sometimes optimistic. They are optimistic about their project. If they weren't optimistic, they wouldn't be developing the property, right? And so we see this time and time again where I have my X number of 500 units, and it's going to be built by 2025 or 2030. Well, maybe or maybe not. And the model is a great way to check because there's really only so much demand in the marketplace, and it's unreasonable to think that one development is going to get 100% of that demand, right? So the model takes all that into consideration. It's excellent for identifying growth management strategies and fiscal analysis. When a project comes along, hey, is that going to tip us over? Are we going to need a new school? Are we going to need a new fire station? Are we going to need a new law enforcement center? The model can be used for testing those things. It can also be used for redistricting, corridor studies, and of course planning for government facilities, parks, fire stations, et cetera. So how can the Martin Interactive Growth Model help you meet the common goals? Well, again, it'll help refine budgets so you don't plan too quickly or too late for things. I was talking with your utility director this morning and talking about when is the right time to plan a plant expansion, and these things are very expensive, and you don't want to wait too long, and you don't want to do it too soon because it's the taxpayer dollars. There's only so many taxpayer dollars to go around, and we got to treat them like the precious resource that they are. It helps prioritize those capital improvements and strategically plan for the future. And it can demonstrate where roads may be impacted by long commutes because if I've got a residential area and I don't have any employment centers in the area, well, there's only one way to get to work, and it's going to be getting in your car and driving down the road. The model's great for showing that for your transportation planners and such. And many of our clients, multiple departments wind up using our data from Parks and Rec, the sheriff, libraries, the MPOs, and fire stations, et cetera. So in summary, the Martin Interactive Growth Model offers a consistent database for all the departments to use. It can match Beaver's numbers, so it's not like we're opposing Beaver, but we provide the spatialness that Beaver doesn't quite provide, right? Because it's a bulk number, and yes, you can take your various incorporated areas or unincorporated and start subtracting, but isn't it nice when you can lay again any kind of shape over this and say, what is the population now, what is it going to be in the future, and why? What's going to be expanding? The data is excellent for, again, doing your budgets and analysis and plans, and to help account for your land use policies and what they might mean. If you changed this policy, how would that impact growth, either up or down? And of course, then again, the spatialness, that's one of the special parts of the interactive growth model. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Commissioner Camping?
Mr. Farmer, thank you very much. I happened to watch your presentation to the LPA, like I got nothing better to do, but I thought it was interesting, and it was different from today. I know you were doing that one virtually, and so I feel I have a larger scope of what you were talking about. I had two questions that I yelled at the TV from home, but somehow you didn't respond. So
Sorry about that.
Today, I get to ask you in person. You just touched on briefly that most, if not all, of our county departments could utilize your services, but also other municipalities, even our constitutional officers could benefit from the data that's derived from what you're doing. Do we look at you and the services that you offer collectively as a county? Do we have to break them out, City of Stewart, Village of Indiantown, and you start to create the scope of contracts on your own with them individually? How's the business model work?
So that's a great question, and it can be done where I work for you and they pay you back, or I could have separate contracts with them. I'm not going to work for the development community. I'm only going to work for government. I'll make that pledge to you. Let's say Indiantown hired us. What we would do is we would make a carbon copy of the model as it exists, because if they want to start making changes, I'm not going to let them change your model. We can certainly make changes, and then when I'm back working for you, so let's say there's a lag in time, I can say, well, Indiantown said they want to do these. Do you want me to incorporate those into your model? And I think there's only like 18 zones in Indiantown, so it's not a lot of change there, but that's how that would be navigated. Now, Stewart, of course, is a little more complex. However, there's just not a lot of vacant. Yes, there is vacant land in Stewart, but just not a lot of it. So Any changes there would also probably just be a few number of zones, and we could incorporate it in your model if you would like, or not. I think that's how we'd approach it, but I'm also open to suggestion.
Okay, so to follow up with that, if you were to do a deal with the city of Stewart or the village of Indiantown, and like you said, using Hertz as an example, either of those two municipalities were to have a game-changing event, a large corporation, more so probably in Indiantown. I know that they are poised to try to create an opportunity for themselves out there. Would we only know what's happening in Indiantown and how it would affect us collectively as the unincorporated portion of Martin County if you had a relationship with them, or would our relationship with you, you'd have to look at that information? Because that obviously, even though it's not necessarily within our control, it still has a ripple effect on the rest of us. So how would a game-changing event in one of our municipalities, how would you factor that into our version of this?
I would work with your planners to make the best decision possible, to probably run 2 different models to show you with their game changer or without their game changer. Anything I would do for them would be a public record, so I can't imagine there being a confidentiality issue.
No, I'm sure not.
I just can't imagine one.
Right, this is not corporate America, it's government America. My next question for you is, what is the current scope of your contract with us? I know that this, you've sort of reached the end of this first phase of it. Now, I don't see us saying, okay, check the box, we brought him in, we did this analysis, we've created this tool, and it's as of whatever the end of your contract is, and then everything thereafter. To me, I think this has to be an ongoing relationship, and I don't know, is it currently that way? Are we I guess a question for Ms. Krista, are we discussing what our future is with your firm today, or has that already been decided?
No, well, I'll let, there's Don.
Let one of the suits talk.
Yes, Don Donaldson, Deputy County Administrator. So at this point in time, we're introducing the concept to you. Certainly, today is not the decision. We're not asking you to decide on its efficacy for future use. I think staff has explored it. They're very encouraged by the results and what it can do for us from a planning element. And I think we would bring it back to you as a future discussion on how we integrate it into a more long-term use. So we're certainly, want your feedback. I think the idea is we've met with some other members of the community to basically kick the tires, take a look at it, and then we would bring it back to you for consideration as a more long-term use as a tool.
Thank you, because thank you very much, Mr. Donaldson. I think if we don't look at a future plan with you, this becomes a snapshot, not a video. Video is not the right word, not a live stream. It would just be a snapshot, and then it would only be as good as the information that you've layered into it. It wouldn't help us in the summer of 2021 or this time next year.
But
So if you're doing a straw poll, I would tell you that I was impressed with how you put this together. I think you knew coming in, Martin County is unique. When you and I had first met a long time ago, I had said to you that success for you would be that when everyone is mad at you. Because there are obviously a faction of our community that wants nothing else to happen. They've moved here and they're ready to shut it down, which I understand. And then there's also a side of the community that's developing and looking to continue to move the ball forward, if you will. And so they'll only be happy with you based on if your calculations work to sort of validate their position. And I have only heard positive things from both sides of the debate. People that are leery that, or want to prove with your help that we already have enough, and people that also want to prove that there is room for strategic growth. And so I'm a fan, and I'm in favor for staff that we would continue the relationship. Of course, being a business person, if you do get contracts from other municipalities, we would expect the VIG.
with it, whatever the laws, the bounds of the law allow, I guess. If I could just comment on a couple things. The model really is a model of your policies, and it's not a fixed, this is how it is. It's based on the policies today, and if you change those policies, then certainly build-out potential could rise or fall, growth rates could increase or decrease. Really, the model is, it's called the interactive growth model, but it's not a pro-growth or anti-growth model. It's a policy model. It models your policies and shows you what the future holds, given everything staying the same. For what it's worth, Collier County, we have somewhere between a 3 and a 5 year deal with them, and I make adjustments to their model just about every month, and that's much easier than waiting 2 years and then finding all the rezones and then going and pulling all the data again. It's easier to keep up on it, and it's less expensive. Just throwing that out there.
I was going to suggest that your model, like many models, is only as good as the data that you put in. So I certainly am in favor of having more input of data that makes it a more valuable model as we go, rather than sit on the shelf, put the data in, sit on the shelf and dust it off. So that is a possibility that you could constantly update this model.
Right, and something I would love to do is when the census is finally released, I mean, it was April, I don't know if it's going to be released in April or not, but when those demographics are released, we did the best job we could, but let's be honest, it's been 10 years since the last census, and we looked at a lot of issues where vacancy rates seemed too high, household sizes seemed too high, higher than what we would really expect, and so we made the best judgment that we could based on the available information, but it would be really nice to load with some fresh demographic data to get really the best idea of how things have or have not changed in different portions of the county. And that would, again, I think, increase its accuracy. And then, of course, updating with the number of housing units, because if all things being equal, you've pulled probably 400 to 500 permits since we last pulled our data in February. And it'd be interesting to see exactly how those are distributed and what areas of the county are or are not growing.
Okay, great.
So,
Commissioner
I mean,
Jenkins.
this is my now third time Clyde has been through this with me. And I made an assumption, I shouldn't have, that this was kind of a living document that staff would be updating and then maybe you would be refreshing. Is that kind of how it works? I mean, the staff, puts the data together and tracks it, and then every once in a while you would come back and
It can be done in a myriad of ways. In some respects, it's good to do it on a monthly basis. As you approve new projects or don't approve things, those changes get made in the model. And then if we could track, say, the COs by the certificates of occupancy, and not just by structure, but by units, and we could update that on a monthly basis, that would just take a little bit of time versus sitting down and spending 30, 40, or 100, 200, 300 hours and reloading and checking all the data again. It can be done either by your staff feeding us the data on a TAZ basis, or by them giving us the addresses. Then we could actually figure out which zones those are in and make the appropriate updates. So we're flexible here to work as much or as little. I find that your staff seems to be pretty busy, but we're not opposed to them doing work both either in the model or feeding us data.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Krista, are you looking for any specific direction?
No, ma'am.
this?
Just really just an acceptance, if you will, of this this process or this change in our. What do you need, Clyde?
It is Christmas.
You got it. We just wanted to make an introduction and an acceptance and understanding of the process. We will be coming back to you next year with more information. We're doing some more work that's a part of the existing contract with David, and we'll be making another presentation with more information and more results of this analysis. And at some point in the probably the first quarter of next year, we will be asking for your direction.
Got it.
Yeah, great. Oh, okay, thank you, Mr. Farmer.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Absolutely. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of our agenda, and 5:05 public comments. I do not have any public speaker forms in front of me. Mr. Merker, no one's on Zoom. And, okay, we'll move to commissioner comments. Commissioner Jenkins.
Something I forgot to mention this morning, I'm spending, or would like to spend, $7,309 on a shed and shelving for the Hope Sound Nature Center.
Shed into what?
A shed, 2 shelving units, to be exact, for $109 apiece, and a window air conditioning unit, and the electrical contractor to hook it all up.
Mr. Smith.
I'm all set, thank you.
Commissioner Camping.
Well, this is our last meeting of the year, so I would just like to look back briefly. It's been a challenging year for all of us, and when I say all of us, I just don't mean the ones in this room. I think globally and at the national level and at the state level, Martin County, we had some wrinkles in our sort of how we've handled situations, but overall, I think that based on what has transpired through 2020 with the pandemic and so many other social issues that are pending, I am pleased with how the 5 of us as commissioners have conducted ourselves, how we have worked together. I know every time that we get elected or re-elected, we make sort of promises that we'll try to work collaboratively, and I think we have done that. These have been very difficult decisions. I think I'd like to compliment our staff, whether it was back to deciding if we're closing beaches or leaving beaches open or boat ramps, and decisions that obviously affect our constituents, but this year more so than ever because everybody was on edge and everyone was trying to figure out. It really tested our ability to work with our neighbors, both on the Treasure Coast and our much larger neighbors to the south. I think we did well. I think we collaborated well with St. Lucie and Indian River counties. I think we collaborated well and sort of were in the same boat with our colleagues in Palm Beach County. And I just wanted to wish everyone a happy holiday season and health and safety, because maybe a year ago we would have taken some of those things for granted, but at the end of the day, which is what I know Commissioner Smith likes to focus on, like at the end of the day, we lost a tremendous amount of Martin County residents. Some of us lost close family members and friends, not just to the pandemic, but in general for so many issues. And so I want to end on a high note and say that I think we did a good job. I think Martin County residents can feel confident that they are being served by a world-class staff and that they are represented by 5 commissioners, that although we have different perspectives and points of view, I think our goal truly is to make this the wonderful place that it is, that people either got an opportunity to grow up here and still live here, or those of us that realized this was a great place to live. And I think 2021 will give us an opportunity for hopeful perspective and keep that dream and reality for a lot of us alive. So thank you very much, and I wish you all well.
Thank you. Commissioner Hurd.
Special best wishes for happy holidays and a healthy new year.
You too.
Great. And myself as well. I just wish everybody a happy holiday, happy new year. Oh, yes, Commissioner Smith.
Can I add one more thing? And I meant to sort of follow up when they were done this morning talking about it, and then we got on to some other things. So this morning we had a series of our arts, culture, history group come in and talk about what they're doing and what they've been experiencing over the last 8-9 months, whatever it's been. And so I don't even know the question I'm asking. It's more a discussion that, Taryn, I don't know if George or someone is reaching out and talking, working with them, but it'd be interesting to kind of see what they're thinking about their future and where do they want us to go with them and what does that conversation look like. So I don't know if George or Don or you or whoever is working with them, talking to them, but I'd be interested to kind of hear more about what they're thinking and what direction they'd like to ask us to be thinking about for the future. So With that, Madam Chair, I'm set. Thank you. And I agree on all the other stuff.
Okay, great. Ms. Krista?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
What? Okay. With that, our next meeting is, our upcoming board meetings are January 5th and January 12th, and we are adjourned.